Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom, family. How is everyone today? Welcome back. I'm blessed by Yah.
And I'm Brother Maurice.
And so I just want to welcome you all back to part 2 of why we stopped eating meat. I want to thank all of you for joining us in the first part. If you haven't watched the first part, please go back and watch the
Yes,
first part.
got to go back and check it out.
Yes, there's so much information, so much wisdom in the first part of this series. So thank you so much for joining us again. Thank you to all of my new subscribers. I really appreciate you all. And let's get started.
All right. Shalom,
Shalom,
shalom.
shalom. You got it.
Pretty. I'm trying to pet you and you want me to pet you? Are you scared? Oh. Papa,
Yeah,
it looks like she lost something on her.
maybe she did.
She lost a horn.
Did you see she asked the deer if he was scared? And after a brief pause, she said, "Oh." Did the deer reveal something to her? Did he reveal something about his horns? Just something to ponder. Let's see what Isaiah 11:6 says.
All right, family, let's go ahead and jump into the lesson. And so we are doing part 2 of why we made the choice to stop eating flesh or meat. Now, there are different reasons why people choose to stop eating. And up on the screen, you see there's 4 reasons right there. And one is understanding from the Old Testament that we were never permitted to eat the flesh of animals. And so you have some people that came to this understanding already.
Mm-hmm.
You know, before they even got all these books. Some people got this understanding with the Bible.
Right.
That's outstanding. You know, all praise to the Most High. And then we have others that had the understanding that Christ commanded us to stop eating flesh. And that's where I came in. From reading the Gospel of the Holy 12 is when I realized that we were never supposed to eat flesh. And then I was digging through the Bible, and then I was able to see it there. But it wasn't until I read that Christ commanded us. And what about you, Sister Peggy?
And so for me, the third we have understanding the health effects and knowing we were using our agency to destroy our bodies. And so for me, over 30 years ago, I decided to stop eating red meat. So it was like no pork, chicken, beef, none of that. And so because my body was having some issues with digesting meat. And so then the fourth one, it says understanding the animals are the Urkadeshi or Shemael. And so although we were still eating fish, as Brother Maurice said, once we started reading the Gospel of the Holy 12, and then we got into the books of remembrance and realizing who the Urkadeshi are and the relationship we are to have with them, we sustained even from eating the fish.
So we understand that our body has a spirit in it. And we also understand when we have the Holy Spirit resides inside of us. So our body, family, is a temple. So not only is it a temple, but we also understand that those animals are the Irkadeshi. Now, I'm going to read from the seal portion, chapter 7, verse number 46. And it says, "And there were no animals that were in this garden," this is the Garden of Eden, "that ate the flesh of those animals that received their sustenance from the plants. And Adam and Eve did not eat the flesh of any animal, and were commanded to abstain from such things, that it was an abomination." Did you hear that, family?
Mm-hmm.
Eating flesh is an abomination. To consume the flesh of any other animal that partook of the fruit of the plants and of the trees that the Father had caused to grow perpetually, and that means in a way that never ends or changes, upon the earth.
Okay, so let's look at the Essene Gospel of Peace. We're looking at Book 1, page 5. If you will that the living God's word and his power may enter you, defile not your body and your spirit. For the body is the temple of the Spirit, and the Spirit is the temple of God. Purify therefore the temple, that the Lord of the temple may dwell therein, and occupy a place that is worthy of him. And so it's telling us here to defile not our body, because we all want the Spirit of the Holy Spirit to live within us, to dwell within us. And so in order for the Father to dwell within us, he's telling us to defile not our body, so there will be a place worthy of him to dwell.
Years ago, when we first came into understanding who we are, looking at different books, one of the books that I ran across was the Targum.
Mm-hmm.
And the Targum is like your first 5 books of the Bible.
Right.
And as I was reading it, I was comparing it and seeing that how drastically there's a change or difference from the Bible to the Targum. So I'm going to read Genesis chapter 1, and I'm going to take a look at verses numbers 26 through 31, and I want you to hear the difference, because we can see things are a little clear, crystal clear here. And it says, and the Lord said to the angels who ministered before him, who had been created in the second day of the creation of the world, let us make man in our image, in our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea. Did you hear this? Mm-hmm. Man is going to rule over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl which are in the atmosphere of heaven, and over the cattle, and over the earth, and over every reptile creeping upon the earth. And the Lord created man in his likeness. And the word of the Lord created man in his likeness, and in likeness of the presence of the Lord he created him. The male and his yoke fellow, he created them. In the image of the Lord, he created him with 248 members, with 365 nerves, and overlaid them with skin, and filled it with flesh and blood. Male and female in their bodies, he created them. And he blessed them. And the Lord said to them, increase and multiply, and fill the earth with sons and daughters, and prevail over it. Now, let's look at prevail. Mm-hmm. Prevail means to prove more powerful than opposing forces. Be victorious. Now that I read this, you see there's something that we have to do. And it says prevail is to prove more powerful than opposing forces. So we have Semihaza, and we have all these fallen watchers. And now it's important that we can be more powerful than these opposing forces, mm-hmm. and be victorious. Let's continue. Let me read it back again. And he filled the earth with the sons and daughters and prevailed. And, hold on a second. And prevailed over it in its possessions. And have dominion over the fish of the sea. Now you're seeing it's telling us to have dominion. Mm-hmm. Dominion means that we take care of them. We watch over them. We protect them. And have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the heavens, and over every creeping animal that creepeth upon the earth. And the Lord said, behold, I have given you every herb any plant with seed, leaves, or flowers, whose seed seedeth upon the face of the earth. And every unfruitful tree, listen to this, it says, and every unfruitful tree for the need of building and for burning. And the tree in which is fruit seeding after its kind, to you it shall be for meat. But to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the heavens, and to every reptile upon the earth, in which is the living soul, I have given all green herbs. And it was so. And the Lord beheld everything he made, and it was very good. And it was evening, and it was morning, the sixth day. So we understand this part about evening, morning. We understand that they made that backwards. Let's go ahead and continue.
So let's look at the sealed portion, chapter 86, verse 29. And it says, and now the Father gave the commandment to Adam and Eve that they should work and eat by the sweat of their own brow.
Let's pause for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Do you notice what it said in there? It said that they should work and eat.
Mm-hmm.
Family, today, we don't work and eat by the sweat of our own brow the way the Father intended it. Today, we're actually in a system of slavery, and we actually work for others. And we're not working to eat by the sweat of our own brow, because if we were working to eat by the sweat of our own brow, we'd be growing our own food.
Mm-hmm.
But today, we have to trade our time for money in order to purchase
the food.
Substance.
Mm-hmm.
But the substance that we purchase isn't even, the majority of it isn't even real. And the things that we think that are real are actually geo-modified. And because of this, we really don't know what we're eating. But if we had the seeds and we could grow our own food, then things would be different.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead and continue with that. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. And it says, Adam and Eve, that they should work and eat by the sweat of their brow all the days of their lives for a righteous purpose. And this purpose was so that we might learn through experience how glorious and wonderful his kingdom of glory shall be unto us when we inherit them and do not have to work therein to sustain our lives. So this work that we were doing to grow our own foods in these things was to give us the experience of how glorious it will be in the Father's kingdom when we don't have to do that. But it's like you said, now we're not doing it ourselves. And even the things that we are eating is not real nourishment for the healing of our bodies.
Now let's take a look at the book of remembrance of our chi. In 1 Chi, chapter 6, starting at 55, because in verse 55, we're going to start to see some things that took place.
Mm-hmm.
Because, family, a lot of things took place. People think, oh, I found the truth. And the truth that they believe they found is who they are. Well, yeah, you woke up to who you are. But now there is so much more to find. Because I don't know about you, family, but every time I dig in these books, I find something else.
You get more understanding.
I get
more wisdom.
Absolutely. Yeah. But the thing is, the enemy tried their best to change everything. Mm-hmm. They wanted to make sure that we would never find our way back. Now it says, and in those years, it came to pass that one arose named Solomon. A lot of people, because of the Bible, believe that Solomon was righteous. Solomon was never righteous. And Solomon, who changed the affairs of the kingdom, for he established a love for the nation of Israel. Did you hear this? So Solomon had a love of Israel. And because of this, he wanted to set Israel up the way he wanted to set it. And listen what it says. And he begat a feeling that in their nation could excel above the nations who were their neighbors. Did you hear this? He wanted to be able to put Israel above the other nations, but the Father says we're all equal.
Right.
We are all brothers and sisters. And then it says, but he was a sorcerer, and he added sorcery unto their idol worship, and in many ways replaced their idols with divination, sorcery, and witchcraft. And Solomon built a temple for Moloch. Did you hear this?
Mm-hmm.
Solomon built a temple for Moloch, people. And when this temple was destroyed, and you had the time of the Maccabees, where they went to fight, and then they did everything to rebuild the temple. And the people today, they celebrate the Feast of Dedication. But family, when they're celebrating the Feast of Dedication, they're actually celebrating us coming back into our wickedness that Solomon had already set up. But let me read. Listen, family. It says, and Solomon built a temple for Moloch, and he started a period lasting nearly 400 years that sorcery prevailed among the leaders of their nation and among the people. But this cycle of sorcery was broken by the hand of God during the time of Jeremiah, when the house of Israel was destroyed and the people carried off captive into the nations. Howbeit, a remnant remained, and a remnant, listen to this, family, returned. And when they returned, the people sought to reestablish the temple of Solomon and followed what they supposed was the law of Moses. Did you hear this, people? They followed what they supposed was the law of Moses, but it wasn't the law of Moses. But it was instead a compilation of the laws of the regions round about and the traditions of their fathers. Did you hear that? This is something else, family.
Wow. Yeah.
This is something
else. Read that again.
But it was instead a compilation of the laws of the regions round about and the traditions of their fathers and the altered laws of Moses. Did you hear that?
Mm-hmm. So they were following the traditions of men.
Yep, absolutely. Verse 57. And the affairs of the kingdom continued in this manner for more than 500 years. During the time, there came wave after wave of oppressors against them. And this had a profound effect upon Israel in preparing the way of the Lord. For it seemed that almost every and the affairs of the kingdom continued in this manner for more than 500 years, during which the time there came wave after wave of oppressors against them. And this had a profound effect upon Israel in preparing the way of the Lord. For it seemed that almost every nation surrounded Israel sought to oppress them, each one in their turn. And this caused the people over this period of time to have a strong desire. Listen to this. It caused the people to have a strong desire to be a holy nation unto the Lord for the first time. Let's pause here. Now, as the people today, as Israel begins to wake up, they want to do the same thing now. They now have a strong desire to serve the Lord. But it's hard for us to do that, especially when we just have the Bible. When we don't know who the true Father is, it's really hard to serve them. Although we may have good intentions, it's hard to serve them with the corrupt things that we were given. It said they had a strong desire to be a holy nation unto the Lord. For the first time, For it had taken more than 1,000 years and untold suffering for them to reach that point. And it was these many struggles against oppressors that finally instilled this desire in them. And as they sought to be a holy nation, they did so with a corrupt law and tradition and practice. However, they supposed that their law and ways were holy before the Lord. Just like today, family, as Israel wakes up and they start to dig into the Bible, they think that their ways are righteous and just. We're just doing the same exact thing that our forefathers did. The same exact thing. And it says, for the truth was obscure unto them because of the many deceits of their ancestors and the intense onslaughts of the host of Semi-Hazar. The seal portion, chapter 49, verse 7 says, and in the time of Yeshua, the law of Moses had been corrupted and changed considerably. Now, family, we understand that the Father never commanded any sacrifice of any animals. So when I read this next part, we can see some things in the seal portion it's not quite correct. It says, even that the original purpose and meaning of the sacrifice of animals, there was never an original purpose for the sacrifice, family, of any animals. So I'm going to skip that part now. And it says, but the people, so I'm midway through on verse number 7, but the people did these things according to their traditions, that they might fulfill the requirement of salvation as they had been taught to believe by their leaders today. So just like it was with our forefathers, right, the same thing, family, is happening right now with us. They're trying, but they're still in darkness. Now let's go to the restored version of Isaiah chapter 1.
And it says, yea.
Verse number 11.
Verse number 11. And it says, yea, have kept the law of Moses, and it has done nothing for you. And it has burdened me from its beginning. For do ye know that what purpose?
What purpose?
For do you know to what purpose is the multitude of the sacrifices that ye make unto me, saith the Lord? Do you think that ye keep the fullness of my law with your burnt offerings of rams and the fat of fed beasts? Do you think that I delight in the blood of bullocks or of lambs or of he-goats? I delight not at all in the shedding of any blood. But ye have put these things before me. And when ye come to appear before me, who is it that have told you that I require these things at your hand? Is it not those who tread my courts that have told you to do these things? I have required none of these things as an offering from your hand. The whole of the law is an abomination unto me.
So it says, who told you to do these things? But remember, from when we looked at the first lesson that we did, it was the priests. The priests told them through the sacrifice of animals, they would have their sins. They would have their sins forgiven. But that wasn't true. The priests were doing so many things. Go ahead.
I was going to say, let's look at the Gospel of the Holy 12, Lection 33. And it says, by the shedding of blood of others is no remission of sins. And Yeshua answered, no blood offering or beast or birds or man can take away sin.
Wait a minute, but it says or man, but couldn't Christ take away our sins?
And Yeshua answered, and he said, no blood offering or beast or bird or man can take away sin. For how can the conscience be purged from sin by the shedding of innocent blood? Nay, it will increase the condemnation.
Mm.
The priests indeed receive such offering.
Who?
The priests indeed receive such offering as as a reconciliation of the worshippers for the trespasses against the law of Moses. But for sins against the law of God, there can be no remission, save by repentance and amendment or change.
So you have to ask for forgiveness, family.
And you have to change.
You have to change. And this is something that a lot of people think that they can just ask for forgiveness, but they don't make the change.
And continue on in their sin. Absolutely.
So let's continue with the Gospel of the Holy 12 in Lection 51. And it says in verse 15, and also Jeremiah bear witness when he saith concerning blood offerings and sacrifices, our Lord God commanded none of these things in the day that ye came out of Egypt. But only this I commanded you to do. Righteousness.
Yes.
Walk in the ancient paths. Do justice. Love mercy. And walk humbly with thy God. Now, in Jude chapter 1, let's take a look at verse number 7 and 8. Because they were telling us something in the book of Jude. It says, even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner give themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh are set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal life. Likewise also, these filthy dreamers defile the flesh, despise dominion, and speak evil of dignities. So they defile the flesh. Not only are they defiling our flesh, they're defiling the flesh of the animals. They're despising, family, what's supposed to be their righteous dominion, because now they're no longer protecting and looking after the animals. Now let's take a look at Isaiah chapter 1. We're still in chapter 1, the restored version, verse number 13. It says, bring no more of your vain oblations before me. The incense that ye offer upon the altar have ye made by your hands is an abomination unto me. Your traditions wherein ye assemble, so that you can observe the new moons and honor the Sabbaths, I cannot bear any longer. All of these things are an iniquity before me. Even the solemn assemblies that your leaders hold to appoint these things for you and command them of you. Did you hear this? They have appointed unto you to worship days. They gave you your holy days, family, of new moons, and given you feasts that honor me when they honor themselves thereby. It says, my soul hateth, but we know the Father doesn't hate. So we know the Father does not like these things. It says, they are a trouble unto me, and I am weary to bear them. What did it say in Amos chapter 5, verse 21? It says, I hate, but we know he doesn't hate. And he says, I despise your feast days, and I will not smell in your solemn assemblies. You know, if you look at all these feast days, what's taking place? A lot of eating of the animals and a lot of drinking of strong drink. And they say they're worshiping the Father, doing exactly what he said not to do. Verse 15.
Let's look at Isaiah 1 and 15. And it says, how can I hear you when you spread forth your hands and make many prayers and obey a law that ye have been given by those who do not know me and assemble against me? Behold, ye honor me with your lips and the acts of empty promises, yet your hands bear the blood of those whom ye despise, and for whom ye care not.
Whoa. Did you hear that?
Right.
Repeat that again, what it says. Family, listen to what she says, and let's see if you understand who they're talking about.
It says, behold, you honor me with your lips and the acts of empty promises, yet your hands bear the blood of those whom you despise and for whom ye care not.
Do you know who he's talking about? Blessed by Yah.
He's talking about the animals.
He's talking about the animals. It says you despise them and you do not care for them. That's messed up.
Let's see what else it says.
Okay.
It says, for greater is your concern for the law of Moses than for the poor and the needy among you. Behold, I cannot hide mine eyes from beholding your acts. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, wash yourselves and make you clean. Put away the evil of your doings from before my eyes. Cease to do evil. Learn to do well to the lambs among you. Seek judgment for the poor and the needy, and relieve them of their oppression. Care for the fatherless, and do not let the pleas of the widow fall upon deaf ears. Do not let their blood remain on your hands.
Wow. Family, let's go to the Gospel of the Holy 12, Lection 14, starting at verse number 6. Because we've been reading a lot out of the Gospel of the Holy 12 because it's important for you to understand our relationship with the animals and how we should feel towards them. Because now we're getting a different view of Christ and how he felt about the Ir Kadeshi Shemiel. Verse 6 says, and as Yeshua was going with some of his disciples, he met with a certain man who trained dogs to hunt other creatures. And he said to the man, why doest thou this? And the man said, by this I live. And what profit is there to any in these creatures? These creatures are weak, but the dogs, they are strong. And Yeshua said, thou lackest wisdom and love. Lo, every creature which God hath made hath its end and purpose. And who can say what is good is there in it? Or what profit to thyself or mankind? And for thy living, behold, the field yielding their increase, for by thy living. So these animals are actually helping us in the field. And so it's helping with the increase and the fruit-bearing trees and herbs. What needest thou more than these which honest work of thy hands will not give to thee? Woe to the strong who misuse their strength.
Read that again.
Woe to the strong who misuse their strength. And listen to this next part. Woe to the hunters, for they shall be hunted. You see, because he was using the dog to hunt. But today, people use the animals, they use the weapons to kill and hunt the Ir Kadeshi, Shemiel. Now listen what the man said. And the man marveled and left off training the dogs to hunt. So now he stopped training his dogs to hunt and taught them to save life rather than destroy. And he learned of the doctrine of Yeshua and became his disciple.
Let's look at the Gospel of the Holy 12, Lection 21. And it says, Yeshua rebuketh cruelty to a horse, condemneth the service of mammon. And it came to pass that the Lord departed from the city and went over the mountain with his disciples. And they came to a mountain whose ways were steep, and there they found a man with a beast of burden. But the horse had fallen down, for it was overladen, and he struck it till the blood flowed. And Yeshua went to him and said, Son of cruelty, why strikest thou thy beast? Seest thou not that it is too weak for its burden? And knowest thou not that it suffereth? But the man answered and said, What hast thou to do therewith? What hast thou to do therewith?
He said, what business of it is
What
of
business
yours?
is it of yours? I may strike it as much as it pleaseth me, for it is mine. For it is mine own, and I bought it with a goodly sum of money. Ask them who are with thee, for they are of mine acquaintance, and know thereof.
So he's saying the people that are with
Ask
you,
the people that
they know this is my
they know
horse.
this horse. Yeah.
I can beat this horse. It's mine. I
It's
bought
mine.
it. I
bought
paid
it.
for
I
it.
paid for it with my money. Right. And some of the disciples answered and said, Yea, Lord, it is as he saith. We have seen when he bought it. And the Lord said again, See ye not then how it bleedeth, and hear ye not also how it waileth and lamenteth? But they answered and said, Nay, Lord, we hear not that it waileth.
So they're saying that we don't hear it making no noise, but they can't hear the spirit of the horse.
Right.
They can't feel what the horse is feeling, what the horse is going through.
Right. And so even if the horse is making a sound, they don't hear it because their hearts are hard.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have the compassion. So he could hear it because he has the compassion for all creatures. And I have a story about that, but I'm not going to tell it right now. Okay. And the Lord was sorrowful and said, Woe unto ye because of the dullness of your hearts. Ye hear not how it lamenteth and crieth unto the Lord, unto the heavenly Creator for mercy. But thrice woe unto him against whom it crieth and waileth in its pain. And he went forward and touched it, and the horse stood up, and its wounds were healed. But to the man he said, Go now thy way and strike it henceforth no more, if thou also desireth to find mercy. And seeing the people come unto him, Yeshua said unto his disciple, Because of the sick I am sick, because of the hungry I am hungry, because of the thirsty I am thirst. He also said, I am come to end the sacrifice and feast of blood. And if ye cease not offering and eating of flesh and blood, the wrath of God shall not cease from you, even as it came to your fathers in the wilderness, who lusted for flesh, and they ate to their content, and were filled with rottenness, and the plagues consumed them. And I say unto you, though ye be gathered together in my bosom, if ye keep not my commandments, I will cast you forth. For if you keep not the lesser mysteries, who shall give you the greater? He that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much. And he that is unjust in the least is unjust also in much. If therefore we have not been faithful in the mammon of unrighteousness, who will commit to your trust
Who will commit to your trust?
Commit to your trust the true riches? And if ye have not been faithful in that which is another man's, who shall give you that which is your own? No servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to one and despise the other. Ye cannot serve God and mammon. And the Pharisees also, who were covetous, heard all these things and derided him. And he said unto them, Ye are they which justifieth yourselves before men, but God knoweth your heart. For that which is highly esteemed among men is abomination in the sight of God. And so I just wanted to share this quick story in saying this. And when Yeshua told them, he says, do you not hear the way the horse lamenteth and the way he wails? So he was crying and lamenting, but because their hearts, they didn't have that kind of compassion for the animal, they couldn't hear it. And so I wanted to tell this story because I remember most people know that we have a garden, and so one year we had this overabundance of, what do you call them? The bees that burrow into the wood. The carpenter bees.
Carpenter bees, yeah.
And so I got this thing that it was like not a Venus flytrap, but it was one of those things that you put out and it has the sticky surface, and the bees would get stuck on them. And so we had took our screen downstairs and we screened it in because our granddaughter liked to go out there, but she didn't, she was afraid of the bees and the bugs and all sorts of things that flew around. And so we screened it in so we could all sit out there. But I had this thing sitting right outside the door. And so all of these bees had begun to get stuck on it, and they were buzzing. Now, for Maurice and everybody, I was asking them, I said, do you hear that? Do you hear that? And so Maurice was like, I just hear buzzing. But for me, I heard screaming. It was as if I could hear the bees screaming. And for me, it was torture because now my heart was hurt because I hear these bees crying. I was not hearing buzzing, y'all. I was hearing crying. And I was feeling the suffering that they was going through. And so I told Maurice I couldn't take it. I couldn't sit out there because I couldn't stand to hear it. And so I told Maurice to take it down. And so we took it down, and I had to repent and ask the Father for forgiveness because he allowed me to hear them suffer, to hear them cry. It was a terrible thing, y'all. So when I read this and I was listening to what he was saying, he said, you all not hear him wail and lament him. And they was like, no, we don't hear him. And so I thought about, Maurice was like, no, I hear him buzzing, but he didn't hear him wailing and crying. But it was me that had done the thing. Mm-hmm. So he didn't hear it. It was me that had done the thing, put it up there. So he let me hear them cry.
Because I said, this is their environment. They live here.
Yeah, and so he let me hear them cry. He was hearing them buzz, but I heard them crying from being stuck to that thing. Okay, let's keep going.
All right, family. Let's continue. Gospel of the Holy 12, lecture number 28, starting at verse number 1. And it says, and it came to pass one day that Yeshua had finished his discourse in a place near Tiberias, where there are 7 wells. A certain young man bought live rabbits and pigeons that he might have to eat with his disciples. It's funny when I think about this here story. You got this guy. Hey, I'm going to hear Christ talk. With the disciples. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to hook them up. I'm going to bring some live rabbits and some pigeons, and we're going to feast on these while we listen to what Christ has to teach us. Let's continue. And Yeshua looked on the young man with love, and he said to him, thou hast a good heart, and God shall give thee light. But knowest thou not that God in the beginning gave to man the fruits of the earth for food, and did not make him lower than the ox or the horse or the sheep, that he should kill and eat the flesh and blood of his fellow creatures? Ye believe that Moses indeed commanded such creatures to be slain and offered in sacrifice and eaten, and so do ye in the temple. But because a greater than Moses is herein, and he cometh to put away the bloody sacrifices of the law, and a feast on them, and to restore to you the pure oblation and unbloody sacrifice, as in the beginning, even the grains and fruits of the earth, of that which ye offer unto God in purity shall ye eat. But of that kind which ye offer not in purity shall ye not eat. For the hour cometh when your sacrifices and feast of blood shall cease, and ye shall worship God with a holy worship and a pure oblation. Verse 5, let these creatures therefore go free, that they may rejoice in God and bring no guilt to man. And the young man set them free, and Yeshua brake their cages and their bonds. But lo, they feared lest they should be again taken captive. The animals, they didn't want to leave because they feared that they were going to be captured again, and the same thing was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to wind up on somebody's plate. And they went not away from him, but Christ spake unto them and dismissed them, and they obeyed his word and departed in gladness.
Yeah, I guess they said, no, we're not going nowhere. We're going to stay right here so you can protect us.
Mm-hmm.
The Gospel of the Holy 12, Lection 49, the true temple of God. And the feast of the Passover was at hand, and it came to pass that some of the disciples, being masons, were set to repair one of the chambers of the temple. And Yeshua was passing by, and they said unto him, Master, seest thou these great buildings, and what manner of stones are here, and how beautiful is the work of our ancestors? And Yeshua said, Yea, it is beautiful, and well wrought are the stones. But the time cometh when not one stone shall be left on another. For the enemy shall overthrow both the city and the temple. But the true temple is the body of man.
The true temple is what?
But the true temple is the body of man, in which God dwelleth by the Spirit. And when this temple is destroyed, in 3 days God raiseth up a more glorious temple, which the eye of the natural man perceiveth not. Know ye not that ye are the temples of the Holy Spirit? And whoso destroyeth one of these temples, the same shall be himself destroyed. And some of the scribes, hearing him, sought to entangle him in his talk, and said, If thou wouldest put away the sacrifices of sheep and oxen and birds, to what purpose was this temple built for God by Solomon?
Oh, let's pause for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So you see now they're talking about this temple, and they're talking about what purpose was it that it was built by Solomon. But we understand now that Solomon was wicked. Go ahead and continue. What purpose?
To what purpose was this temple built for God by Solomon, which has been now 46 years in restoring? And Yeshua answered and said, It is written in the prophets, My house shall be called a house of prayer for all nations, for the sacrifice of praise and thanksgiving. But ye have made it a house of slaughter, and filled it with abomination. Again it is written, From the rising of the sun until the setting of the same, my name shall be great among the Gentiles, and incense with a pure offering shall be offered unto me. But ye have made it a desolation with your offerings of blood, and used the sweet incense only to cover the ill savor thereof.
Oh, whoa. Did you see that? The reason why they were using the offering was to cover the
up the
stench
smell
of the dead animals.
I am come not to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. Know ye not what is written? Obedience is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. I, the Lord, am weary of your burnt offerings and vain oblations. Your hands are full of blood. And is it not written, what is the true sacrifice? Wash you and make you clean, and put away the evil from before mine eyes. Cease to do evil, learn to do well. Do justice for the fatherless and the widow and all that are oppressed. So doing ye shall fulfill the law. The day cometh when all that which is in the outer court, which pertaineth to blood offerings, shall be taken away, and pure worshippers shall worship the eternal in purity and in truth. And they said, who art thou that saith to do away, that seeketh to do away with the sacrifices, and despiseth the seed of Abraham? From the Greeks and the Egyptians hast thou learnt this blasphemy. And Yeshua said, before Abraham was, I am. And they refused to listen. And some said, he is inspired by a demon. And others said, he is mad. And they went their way and told these things to the priests and elders. And they were wrath, saying, he hath spoken blasphemy.
All right, family, let's take a look at Doctrines and Covenants, section number 89, because there's some information in there that can be easily misunderstood, should I say. Verse number 4, it says, behold, verily, thus saith the Lord unto you, in consequence of evils and designs which do and will exist in the hearts of conspiring men in the last days. I have warned you and forewarned you by giving unto you this word of wisdom by revelation, that inasmuch as any man drinketh wine or strong drink among you, behold, it is not good. Now we have to understand, strong drink today is actually wine. Back then, wine was actually the fruit of the vine or the fruits. Wine then was fruit juice. Today, wine is an alcoholic beverage because now you have a fermentation process, which we know is the fallen watcher. So it says, inasmuch as any man drinketh wine or strong drink among you, behold, it is not good. Neither meat in the sight of your Father, only in assembling yourselves together to offer up your sacraments before him. And behold, this should be wine, yea, pure wine of the grape, of the vine, of your own make. So now, any of these fruits, you can make wine. They're using grape here, but any fruits, you can make your own fruit juice. And it says, and again, strong drinks are not for the belly. But what they put in the next part, it says, but for the washing of your bodies. But we know that's not true, because we understand it's dealing with the decardarchy of fermentation. Now, verse number 8, it says, and again, tobacco is not for the body, neither for the belly. So he's talking about going inside the body. He says, and it is not good for man, but it is an herb for bruises and all sick cattle, to be used with judgment and skill. So now, I had to get some understanding because, yeah, today people are smoking tobacco, but I know there has to be another purpose for it because it's listed here.
I had heard of putting tobacco on like bee stings.
Mm-hmm. So here, going to Google, it says tobacco leaves are applied to cuts
Mm-hmm.
and as an antiseptic and to stop bleeding.
Mm.
And there's some more information about how the Native Americans, or should I say our forefathers, used it.
Mm-hmm.
They used tobacco for treating wounds and burns. Tobacco leaves were applied directly to wounds and burns to promote healing and reduce pain, according to a report that was taking place back in 1934. And relieving pain and inflammation. Did you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people are dealing with pain and inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
Tobacco was used to alleviate pain and reduce inflammation. So we can see now how tobacco was used. They also have it as an anti-diarrheal and a cholera relief. So tobacco was used in powdered form, so they would crush it up to treat for cholera and other forms of addressing issues with diarrhea. So we can see now different reasons what tobacco was used for. Now that word cholera, it's an excessive discharge or buildup of mucus in the nose or throat.
It's like congestion.
Mm-hmm. Or associated with inflammation of the mucous membrane.
Mm-hmm.
This is something else, because now today with people eating drink a lot of milk and cheeses and stuff like that, and they get that mucus built up, we can see now excessive discharge or buildup of mucus in the nose or throat. You can actually use tobacco. All right, let's continue. Back to Doctrines and Covenants, section 89. And it says, and again, hot drinks are not for the body or belly. But we drink hot drinks all the time here, but we're seeing what it says here.
Mm-hmm.
And again, verily I say unto you, all wholesome herbs God hath ordained for the consumption, nature, and use of man. Now listen here, because this is where it starts to get a little bit twisted. It says, every herb in the season thereof. So you have different seasons where things grow.
Mm-hmm.
So now you can use these different herbs in the season that they're supposed to grow for the region of the world that you live in. And it says, and every fruit in the season thereof. That's for the region you live in. All these to be used with prudence and thanksgiving. And it says, yea, flesh also of beast, and of the fowls of the air, I the Lord have ordained for the use of man with thanksgiving. Nevertheless, they are to be used sparingly. Now we understand. When they're talking about using them, they're not talking about they're not talking about eating them. You're actually using them for whatever type of work that you are doing. Now, when people read the next part, they try to justify the eating of them. And it says, and it is pleasing unto me that they should not be used only in times of winter. So it's saying, don't use these animals during the time of winter. And we also know that winter is an Erkadeshi, and it's a time of rest. It's a time of rest, family, during the winter. And it says that you should not be using them in the cold. And family, it says also they should not be used during time of famine. It says they should not be used during times of famine. Do you know why, family? It's because if you're working extra hard, you're going to eat. Now, if the animals are working extra hard, they're going to want to eat also. But if there's a famine and we're all eating the same thing, there's not that much out there to eat. So during times of famine, you do not use the animals. You don't want to push them and make them work even harder, and there's nothing to eat. This does not mean during the time of famine you can eat the animals. And it says all grain is ordained. Hey, because I'm hearing people, this is what they're saying online. All grain is ordained for the use of man and of beast. Did you hear this? All grain is used for the use of man and of beast, to be the staff of life, not only for man, but for the beast of the field, and the fowls of heaven, and all wild animals that run or creep on the earth. And these have God made for the use of man only in times of famine and excess of hunger. And these have God made only for the use of in times of famine and excess of hunger. What are you talking about? You got to go back up to 13. They're talking about all grain is ordained for the use of man. That's what they're talking about. And these, the grains, have God made for the use of man only in times of famine and excess hunger. All grain is good for the food of man, as also the fruit of the vine, that which yieldeth fruit, whether in the ground or above the ground. So now you can take this grain and you can store the grain. Isn't that what they did during the time of Joseph? They stored up this grain because they knew that a famine was coming. So there wasn't going to be any green vegetation around. But now you had a famine that you could use this grain. Let's continue. Nevertheless, wheat for man, corn for the ox, and oats for the horse, and wine for the fowls and for swine, and rye for fowls and for swine, and for all beasts of the field. Now listen here. And barley for all useful animals, and for mild drinks and other grain. Okay, so this part here where they're saying barley for use for mild drinks, that one, family, you're going to have to pray about it, because when you go and you understand how barley is used, barley, family, is actually used in drinks in two primary ways. It's as for an alcoholic beverage like beer or whiskey, and also as a component of non-alcoholic drinks like barley water. So you're talking about like in your tea, so you're talking about something that's hot. So if it said that we're not supposed to drink things that are hot, and we know we're not supposed to drink alcohol, I really don't understand the purpose for us with barley. But that's something that you're going to have to take to the Father. Let's go ahead and continue. Doctrines and Covenants, section 89.
Verse 18. And all saints who remember to keep and do these sayings, walking in obedience to the commandments, shall receive health in their navel and marrow in their bones, and shall find wisdom and great treasures of knowledge, even hidden treasures, and shall run and not be weary, and shall walk and not be faint.
Okay, so now let's go to the sealed portion. And let's go to chapter 92, starting at verse number 66. And let's take a look at what went on with Daniel. It says, behold, the prophet Daniel gave unto you an example of the law of the Lord pertaining to the foods which ye should eat among you. So this is something, people, that I believe when people were understanding from the Old Testament only that they weren't supposed to be eating the animals, they were able to see this in what took place with Daniel. And it says, because it says here that Daniel gave unto you an example of the law of the Lord pertaining to the foods which ye should eat among you. And it is written, saying, and the king spake to Ashpenaz, the master of the eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel and of the seed of the king, who were the princes, yea, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom, and cunning in knowledge and understanding, science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the place of the king.
Palace.
In the palace of the king, thank you. And whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. And the king appointed them a daily provision of the meat of the king and of the wine which he drank, that they might be nourished for 3 years. And at the end thereof they might stand before the king. Now, among these were the children of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave different names than those that had been given them by their fathers. For he gave unto them Daniel the name Belshazzar, and to Hananiah of Shadrach, and to Mishael, Meshach, and to Azariah of Abednego. Verse 69. But Daniel, knowing the law of the Lord, in all things proposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the meat of the king. So what the king wanted to give them was the flesh of animals, and also wanted to give them fermented drinks. So he wanted to give them alcohol to drink. But Daniel knew the truth, and so Daniel did not want to eat or drink these things. But Daniel, knowing the law of the Lord in all things, proposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the meat of the king, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself with these things. Now God had brought Daniel into favor and tender love with the prince of the eunuchs. And the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my lord, the king, who hath appointed your meat and your drink, that ye might be nourished before him. For why should ye see your faces worse looking than the children, which are his princes, and not of your sort? If he seeth this in you, then shall ye make me endangered, my head to the king, my head to the king. He's like, you got to eat this stuff. If you start looking all shabby, the king gonna want to cut my head off. He's gonna blame me for this because you don't want to eat. And Daniel said to Melzar, whom the prince of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink.
And pulse is like a bean, a legume.
Okay. Then let our continence be looked upon before thee, and compare them to the continence of the children that eat the portion of the meat of the king. And as thou seest, deal with thy servants. So he consented to them in this manner, and proved them 10 days. And at the end of 10 days, their countenance appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat the portion of the meat of the king, and who drank his wine. Thus Melzar took away the portion of their meat and the wine that they should drink, and gave them pulse. For as these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom, and above them all Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams, because he was called a prophet of God. So now we see that Daniel went back to eat the things that the Father commanded us to eat.
Right.
And you see that there was no weakness within the way he looked.
He was just as healthy as those that, in appearance, that those that ate the meat.
Let's continue, verse 74. Now at the end of the days that the king had commanded his servant to bring them in, then the prince of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. And the king communed with them, and among them all he found none like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore stood they before the king. And in all matters of wisdom and understanding that the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers that were in all his realm. Now Daniel could not have been a prophet if he did not understand the mysteries and the laws of God pertaining to all things. And he did understand these things, and for this reason he introduced the laws of health to the king and his house, that they might know the power of God which was in him. And now the Lord is not so much concerned with that which he consumed to live, but he is more concerned with that which ye do with the life. He's concerned of what you do with the life and the energy that you receive from the food that you eat. So when we got to look at life, we got to remember all life is to be protected. Life is not to be taken. Let's continue. Verse number 78. Nevertheless, during the millennium, there shall be no more taking the life of an animal for its flesh, nor shall any be allowed to cook their food for nourishment of the bodies that shall be provided in those days for the children of men. So we see what's going to happen during the millennium. And some people say, well, I'm just waiting for the millennium. Well, that's fine. You have your free agency. But what you need to understand, family, I pray if you're going to wait for the millennium, that you really think twice about eating the holy watchers. But like I said, it's your free agency. Let's go ahead and continue.
Let's look at the sealed portion, chapter 16, verse 42. And it says, because ye do eat the flesh of the beast, and also the flesh of the fowls, and the flesh of the fish in the water, ye have also corrupted and defiled your own bodies, which bodies were not intended to partake of such things. And even if ye were hungry and forced by famine to eat the flesh of a creature, you would not receive the nourishment that your body requires to live in this joy of which you speaketh. For ye have caused the destructive force of fire to destroy the nutrients that the Father hath placed in the flesh of these animals, and also in the plants that these animals eat to gain their nourishment. And because ye have become used to the taste of seared fat and boiled plants and fruits, yea, because ye have received this joy from eating that which have none of the natural nutrients.
No nutrients?
Have none of the natural nutrients that the Father hath provided therein to give our bodies health and strength, ye have caused that disease and pestilence should come upon you, and can ye call this an everlasting joy?
So family, we see now eating this flesh, there is no nutrients whatsoever. But you know, family, people have been finding this out. And what we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to switch. We're going to take a look at a couple videos. And we want to see what people have to say about this.
Right.
First, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a look at the lies that are out there, because there are lies out there.
Right.
And then we're going to go and look at some things that people are speaking for the truth. And then after that, we're going to end off with one. Some of you may have heard of her before. Her name is Chef Babette. And she's been eating, well, she stepped away from eating flesh over 30-something years ago. And I want to say she's like 70.
I think she was 50-something when she started, and she's like 75 or something.
Yeah, she's somewhere around there. And so we're going to look at her. Now, we're going to look at bits and pieces of these. Just clips. And like I said, I'm going to put the link in the description of each of these videos so that you can later on go back and watch them in their fullness. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at the first video.
diet for a Rastafarian?
Just food, herbs and vegetables.
What about
Fruits,
fish?
herbs and, no, not with face. Not with face.
Got it.
Yeah. No dead flesh. Not supposed to go in there alive, goody. This is a live temple of the Most High Jah, Rastafari, where you're supposed to just eat natural. Because what? The food shall be your medicine, and your medicine shall be your food.
When did people normalize eating a dead carcass? Like, we've all been conditioned to just accept that that's food. Why is everyone eating a dead carcass? You know, they say breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Why is a bacon, egg, and cheese the first thing people are putting in their bodies when they get up?
We've been taught so many lies, people. But now people are starting to wake up from the lies. Check out this lie.
Most chi I've ever received from eating an animal is when I ate the heart and kidneys of a goat I had helped slaughter that very same day. Now, the act of slaughtering an animal is an incredibly sacred exchange between the one giving its life and the one doing the act of killing. It is a shamanic and spiritual experience that is profound, just like birth. And when we eat meat that is packaged up all neat and tidy in a plastic wrapper from the grocery store or arrives fresh and hot on our plate from a restaurant, we are many steps removed from this intimate process and exchange of life and death. So we are receiving only a fraction of the chi that we have the potential to receive when we really get up close with that life-death process. And it can be easy to write off slaughters as something that's bad or wrong or dirty or we shouldn't do it or we should just eat plants. However, when you're actually present for that threshold moment of death and life, then we feel that vibration that we are, and we remember that the life-death cycles are happening around us all the time, that we are death. And actually, death is an integral part of the human experience. It is an integral part of life on earth. And if we look away from death for too long, then we won't even be living fully alive. And so after slaughtering that goat, we got to process it, and it was at a goat farm that I had been milking goats at for a few months, and I developed close connections with the animals, with the people on the farm up in Santa Cruz. And when I ate that heart and that kidney that night, just little nibbles of it, it was a huge upwelling of chi that flooded my whole being, and that's all I needed. I didn't need the full meal because I was present for that life-death process.
Now, family, we're starting to see how satanic this all is. Now listen to what she says about the animals and the plants, family.
Plants were always toxic to us. Meat never was. This is a list of meat that is deadly toxic to humans. Polar bear liver, because it's high in vitamin A. Too much vitamin A will kill us. Raw shark, because it's high in urea. We've got the puffer fish, it's a neurotoxin, and the Nemora jellyfish. I don't think humans spent much time trying to hunt those guys. These are the only meats that are toxic to us. We can eat anything else. You want a lizard? Go for it. You want a chipmunk? Go for it. You can eat any kind of thing that moves. But plants, more than 700 species of plants in the United States and Canada alone are deadly toxic.
So what we see here, family, is they're doing everything possible to make sure you do not try anything new. Now, because of this video, people will just stick to the norm of the things that they're used to and will not dare to try anything new. Now, one thing we have to understand, titles such as doctor, PhD are used to give credence to the lies. So now, check out this famous, well-known doctor and listen to what he has to say about eating meat. This is getting crazy, family.
Now, if we're talking about the absolute best food to help you heal, repair, especially after exercise, but from anything like stress, trauma, surgery, hands down, the answer would be red meat. Now, I recently did a video talking about different proteins which are a little bit better for certain health conditions. Maybe something's better for anti-inflammatory, etc. But when we're talking about generalized healing and repair, animal meat, and specifically red meat, is at the top of the list.
that video will have people now focus on eating meat. Now in Psalms 58:3, it says that the wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. So family, whose report will you believe? Will you believe what we're given in the scriptures or what they're telling us? The truth about the things we eat. Now we're going to find out some truth, family. So pay attention over these next few videos.
That's what's happening with meat consumption. So meat consumption actually causes diabetes and it causes heart disease. Excessive proteins cannot be broken down by our body. It is something called it's called high homocysteine. High homocysteine is happening when you eat a bunch of meat. And this homocysteine is actually breaking down from methylthionine. And when you see the methylene getting broken down to these components, it breaks down into homocysteine. Homocysteine causes all these problems.
In the World Health Organization, it says that if you eat meat, it will cause cancer.
So all processed meat, which most meat is processed, because it has to be. You got to think, if you slice something up or kill something, there's no way possible for it to last the length of time that it lasts. I mean, if you run a dog over out there and come back 2 days later, it's going to smell, look, and have things coming out of it. It goes into rigor mortis, and then all of a sudden it starts to break down. So how is it that meat can be in this grocery store for weeks and days? Because most of the meat you're eating, it's in there in the process for months. They didn't just slice the animal open and then brought it over to the supermarket. And you know, sometimes when you go in there, you'll see the meat, it'll look sort of gray and brown.
Yes.
That's the meat that the dye has ran out of it. You have to spray it with dye. You got to think, anything that dyes is going to change colors. It can't keep its color because the color is coming from the blood. And so when the truth came to me right in front of my face, I never argued with it because I was like, that's what I was looking for the whole time.
But who guided you in that process? Because a plant-based diet doesn't just fall in your lap. So,
yeah, 100%. Because my mom is the cook in the family. Like, as a matter of fact, growing up, I remember my mom would cook on the weekends, and people would come over and get plates for the leftovers, like pay for them.
Wow.
So my mom was that kind of cook, and she cooked everything. Now, I'll say I stopped eating pork maybe in the 6th grade. I saw Malcolm X. But everything else was on the table.
She was an advanced kid. Seriously.
He was saying, I'm the 6th grade.
6th grade is crazy. I'm eating everything.
So double bacon cheese.
Right. Is hypertension hereditary, or is it hereditary to what our family eats?
Okay, so what I always tell people, because again, you got to remember, I got diagnosed when I was 16.
What is hypertension? I don't know.
So the best way to explain it is high blood pressure.
Okay.
Okay, and what that is the best way I explain that to my audience is that it is a dis-ease. A dis-ease is dis to remove, ease, peace.
Okay.
A removal of peace from the body.
Okay.
Hypertension is a lot of tension in the body.
Okay.
Okay. That tension is coming due to pressure. Pressure specifically in the arteries and the blood vessels. Okay. That could come due to plaque. That can come due to a thickness of the blood. That can come due to a blockage. A lot of different things. Okay. Stress even. So it doesn't matter where it comes from, but it primarily comes from our diet. Okay. And when you think about hypertension, Black people in America have the highest statistics of any people in the world. Okay. And that's
in America.
In America. African Americans have the highest and the worst blood pressures in the world. We also have the worst diet in the world. When you look at our diet, that soul food diet that we're going to talk about in a second, that is a prescription for death. Okay. And that's what I grew up on. That's why I lost all my grandparents. One of the things I didn't tell you, I lost all of my grandparents, but I had a great grandmother who lived to 105.
What was her eating like?
She walked into my grandmother's funeral, who was 67.
Oh.
She grew up on a farm, lived on a farm. She ate what she grew. It was a very different lifestyle.
Your grandma passed away at 67.
Yeah.
And the average life expectancy for a woman in America is like 78, 80.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's important to know, like, you know, my grandmother had 11 kids. And when we transitioned from the 60s and 70s, what happened was we industrialized our food after World War II. That's where you got a lot of soldiers who would take home the MREs. That was the first processed food, because they created that food for soldiers to be able to get food on the battlefield.
So that's when we first got introduced to processing.
That's the first introduction to it. They hired scientists to figure out, how do we create food for the soldiers that doesn't go bad? Because in World War I, most of the soldiers died not due to warfare, they died due to starvation and malnutrition.
Yeah. So even as a scientist, you know that it's not nutritious, but you know it's going to help keep the soldier alive, so they create it.
Well, that was never the goal, to be necessarily nutritious.
It's not to be nutritious, just
to create food.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that World War II, that's also when the companies that built America were
established.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hershey's, McDonald's, all the preservative.
Yeah, well,
KFC.
a lot of the technology came out of World War II that was created. Because you got to remember, World War II was against refrigerators, microwaves.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Yep.
A lot of the technology that was created during the military, for the military during World War II, was then given to the public, or given to these new companies, and then it was implemented, and then our food got industrialized. So my grandmother having 11 kids, trying to figure out how do you feed 11 kids, and now you switch from a natural oil to now you're using Crisco. You see what I'm saying? Most people had a garden in their yards, and you go back to the 40s and the 50s. Now you're not going to your garden to get your food. Now you're going to a supermarket. Supermarkets didn't exist prior to the 50s. Most people didn't have refrigerators in their homes prior to the 50s. So you got to understand, now we're going from this fresh food society to now food products. You understand? And if you make food products, you have to use preservatives. You have to use food chemicals, because they won't last long on the shelf.
If you want it to have shelf life.
If you want it, that's the whole. See, when a company creates food, they're not creating food for the purposes of putting it on the shelf for 7 days and then they're going bad. Because now the store owners aren't going to buy it. But if I can put food on your shelf that can last for a year, they'll stock up on that.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So we went from food to food products. You see what I'm saying? And that was the shift.
At 16, were you able to make the connection that, I'm healthy, I'm active, I'm an athlete, and I got high blood pressure?
Yeah.
It's got to be because of the food. Or did this realization come later on in life?
No, I said it was because I had bad genes, because I lost all my grandparents. I'm like, and diabetes, hypertension is riddled through my family. So I'm like, I got bad genes. But here's the thing about genes that we now know, because we unraveled the human DNA in 2006. 95% of diseases are nutritional. Only 5% are gene-based.
95% of diseases are nutritional.
Nutritional and lifestyle. So only 5% are actually based on your genetics. Those are the rarest diseases. It's not hypertension. It's not diabetes. It's not even most of the cancers. It's not breast cancer, prostate cancer, colorectal cancer, none of the cancers that you would think of.
Okay, so let's get into it, because you said 95% of diseases come from nutrition, right?
And lifestyle.
And lifestyle. In the World Health Organization, it says that if you eat meat, it will cause cancer.
Yeah.
Right.
So all processed meat, which most meat is processed, because it has to be. You got to think, if you slice something up or kill something, there's no way possible for it to last the length of time that it lasts. I mean, if you run a dog over out there and come back 2 days later, it's going to smell, look, and have things coming out of it. That's what flesh does. It's supposed to do that. It goes into rigor mortis, and then all of a sudden it starts to break down. Okay? So how is it that meat can be in this grocery store for weeks and days? Because most of the meat you're eating, I mean, it literally takes, it's in there in the process for months. They didn't just slice the animal open and then brought it over to the supermarket.
Months.
And you know, sometimes when you go in there, you'll see the meat, it'll look sort of gray and brown.
Yes.
That's the meat that the dye has ran out of it.
The dye.
Because they spray it, that you have to spray it with dye. You got to think, anything that dyes is going to change colors. It can't keep its color because the color is coming from the blood.
And the dye is like the processing part. A lot of like
it's a spray.
Yeah.
Bro, so we know this information. What do you think makes it so hard for us to make the transition or switch from eating these type of things? If we know this, 95% of diseases are coming from nutrition and lifestyle. We know that processed meats are causing cancer. What is so hard for us to understand? Well, the information is available.
What is it? The stuff is not accessible though, like that, is it? And it's not affordable.
But what's not affordable and what's not accessible? Because
unprocessed meats.
Well,
right?
as I was saying before, all of those processed meat, and if you go to the IARC, which is the governing body that determines what is and what isn't cancerous or carcinogenic, processed meats are a level 1 carcinogen, the same category as cigarettes, plutonium, etc. Okay, all processed meat. That's deli meat that you make sandwiches with. That's turkey bacon, that's sausages. That's turkey, whatever is processed meat. It's a level 1 carcinogen. But the reason why we have a disconnect between the two is because we're being constantly told that it's our genetics. That's why I believed it. We believe that we're sick because we got bad genes. Right. And we believe that the only solution there is a drug. Because if you look at commercials, just start checking out commercials. I would say 70% of commercials are either fast food or drug commercials.
Sister Peggy will be talking about in the future these commercials with the fast food and the drug commercials.
We now know, because we unraveled the human DNA in 2006. 95% of diseases are nutritional. Only 5% are gene-based.
95% of diseases are nutritional.
Nutritional and lifestyle. So only 5% are actually based on your genetics. Those are the rarest diseases. It's not hypertension. It's not diabetes. It's not even most of the cancers. It's not breast cancer, prostate cancer, colorectal cancer, none of the cancers that you would think of.
Okay, so let's get into it, because you said 95% of diseases come from nutrition, right?
And lifestyle.
In the World Health Organization, it says that if you eat meat, it will cause cancer.
Yeah.
Right.
So all processed meat, which most meat is processed, because it has to be. You got to think, if you slice something up or kill something, there's no way possible for it to last the length of time that it lasts. I mean, if you run a dog over out there and come back 2 days later, it's going to smell, look, and have things coming out of it. That's what flesh does. It's supposed to do that. It goes into rigor mortis, and then all of a sudden it starts to break down. Okay? So how is it that meat can be in this grocery store for weeks and days? Because most of the meat you're eating, I mean, it literally it's in there in the process for months. They didn't just slice the animal open and then brought it over to the supermarket.
Months.
And you know, sometimes when you go in there, you'll see the meat, it'll look sort of gray and brown.
Yes.
That's the meat that the dye has ran out of it.
The dye.
Because they spray it, that you have to spray it with dye. You got to think, anything that dyes is going to change colors. It can't keep its color because the color is coming from the blood.
And the dye is like the processing part. A lot of like
it's a spray.
Bro, so we know this information. What do you think makes it so hard for us to make the transition or switch from eating these type of things? If we know this, 95% of diseases are coming from nutrition and lifestyle. We know that processed meats are causing cancer. What is so hard for us to understand? The information is available.
What is it? The stuff is not accessible though, like that, is it? And it's not affordable.
But what's not affordable and what's not accessible? Because
unprocessed meats.
Well,
right?
As I was saying before, all of those processed meat, and if you go to the IARC, which is the governing body that determines what is and what isn't cancerous or carcinogenic, processed meats are a level 1 carcinogen.
Now, family, it's time that we begin to use our agency in the choices that we make. And in the book of remembrance of Melchizedek 1, verse number 25 says, "Now I will open up to you the instructions of the Lord to me regarding agency. And the Lord continued and he said, agency by definition is a reference to the ability of a person to choose freely and intelligently which way they will go and that which they will do and how they will behave. You're getting information now, family. So now you can make a wise choice using your free agency on how you will continue forward in eating. Let's continue with the next video, family.
And I believe that what is going on in terms of illness, number one, mental, physical, emotional, some of what is going on is due to a lack of knowledge. Would you not agree? Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. In 1990, I met my husband. He gave me 2 books. Fit for Life by Harvey and Marilyn Diamond, volumes 1 and 2. Now, I had just met this brother. So I'm thinking to myself, really? You gonna give me some books? Can you just take me on a date? Then he also gave me the Mucusless Diet Healing System by Professor Arnold Ehret. Because he was cute, I read the books. I did myself the greatest favor ever. And I have not looked back. Before I got those books, I could not digest my food. I had absolutely no knowledge that there was a such thing as food combination. Y'all hip to food combinations? Really? So you eat a bowl of beans and then drink some orange juice? That's improper food combinations. And that is why I'm saying to you that knowledge is power. Because when I came upon this knowledge, my entire human experience changed. I couldn't use the bathroom. Every time I ate, and have you noticed that we are the only species on the planet that needs to medicate after we eat? Your doctor will tell you to take some Tums, just in case you have acid reflux. That comes from bad food combinations. And if you're not hip to what that is, how many people even know that there are different types of fruit? There's acid fruit. There's subacid fruit. There's sweet fruit. Did you even know that you cannot eat subacid? Or is it acid with sweet? That's what it is. So you don't eat an orange and a banana. That's a lousy combination. Melons should be eaten alone. Did you even know that? No, because every time we go to the barbecue at Auntie's house, she got a big ass bowl with melons scooped with every fruit, berry, everything in there. Did you know you shouldn't even be eating fruit if it ain't got seeds in it? Who made that? Who made them grapes that ain't got no seeds in the grapes? How come we ain't got no seeds in watermelon? Who made the watermelon with no seeds in it? Why is there watermelon without seeds? I don't believe the intelligence that brought that food to this planet for us to ingest meant for it not to have seeds. So that means that somebody is fondling with the food. So if they're messing with your food, they have power over you. I don't want no watermelon that ain't got a seed in it. No, thank you. I don't even eat the grapes no more. If I can't find a grape with a seed, I don't want the grape. That is why I'm telling you it's not just, oh my God, and the box food, we're feeding our babies out of boxes. We're feeding our babies out of bags, cans. Do you ever flip the box or the can over and read the ingredients? Do you ever read the ingredients? You give your babies food in the morning going to school with dye in it. Dye is cancer causing. If you got yourself a box of food, you flip it over and you look at the ingredients with 2 paragraphs of words that you cannot pronounce. Why are you ingesting that? And why on earth are you giving that to your children? Or do you even know what you're supposed to be giving your children? I know I'm running through a lot, but Lord, I feel like vomiting this. It's so important. We're sick. Diabetes. We're overweight. And this is not to put anybody down. What we're doing to ourselves is due to a lack of knowledge. But sometimes it's because we're stubborn. And sometimes, I done had it said to me, I'm gonna eat my meat. Come on now. Don't be looking at me like I'm lying. Have you heard it before? I'm gonna eat my meat. Well, let me just tell you this. What are you eating when you eat your meat? You eating somebody's blood. You eating somebody else's pus. You don't know who raised it. You don't know how it was murdered, slaughtered, for you to be able to eat your meat. I have not put a piece of animal flesh in my mouth since 1990. I can still get down and do an 8-minute plank at 73 years old. So don't you tell me nothing about eating your meat. Because I know a whole bunch of y'all eating your meat that can barely walk to the block. We have got to do a better job of taking care of us. We brought knowledge to this planet. Excuse me. We brought knowledge to this planet. And we need to go back to being what we were. The kings and the queens that we are. Please. The diseases that we have. How many of you understand why we are so ill right now? Why is diabetes killing us? Why is heart disease killing us? Why? We're not getting any nutrients because we eat out of boxes and bags and cans. That is not food. Those are products. An apple is food. Broccoli is food. Kale is food. They always telling me, hey, where you get your protein? I must be getting it from someplace. Because I got plenty of it. I love my human experience. I love this journey called life. But I don't stand up and tell you that I love it and hold the book and talk about how much I love it. But yet, I don't embrace it and take care of this human body. Because I do love it. And I prove to the intelligence every single day how much I love the gift of life. This is a gift. This human experience is nothing more than a journey. I don't need to live to be 150 years old. I just need quality while I'm here. If I go down, I'm getting my ass up. And I don't need nobody to come and help me up. If I get in my bathtub, I'm getting my ass out. And I don't need nobody to come and give me a hand to get out the tub. But there are a whole bunch of us that can't even get in the tub. And I know this, I'm not trying to come off hard. I'm just saying, when I came up here today, I just thought to myself, I just want us to listen. I want us to pay attention to what I'm talking about. Because I ain't playing. Ain't none of this no joke. Hey, when they talk about population control, boo, they ain't talking about no guns. They don't need no guns to control our population. They got bad food. They got chemicals. They're feeding you stuff that's fake, and they're making the money off of it. And you buying it and giving it to your babies. And then when you get sick, the pharmaceutical companies, they get richer and richer. And then you die. And then who else makes some money? The funeral home? Oh, that's right, huh? Yeah. But this ain't no joke. Look, when I get up in the morning to go work out, ain't nobody gonna get up and go work out for me but me. I'm it. Who gonna do it for me? Nobody. You sit all day at work. You get in your car, you sit driving home. You come home, you eat your ox ass, and then you sit down in front of the TV and you sit for the rest of the evening. And then you have heartburn, so you take your Tums. Ain't none of that got to happen. That's all I'm saying. Ain't none of it got to happen. All you have to do is educate yourself and educate your little ones and understand who you are, and the intelligence that created you gave you a diet that you can pick off of a tree. You don't need nobody to put your food in no box or no can. To hell with the convenience. Start a garden on your porch. I don't know. But do something to take care of you, because ain't nobody gonna do it for you.
All right, family. Those videos were something else. They were an eye-opener. Now, we've been looking at and doing a series talking about the vicissitudes of life. And one thing we can look at now that we're understanding is truth, that a change of circumstance or fortune, typically one that is unwelcome or unpleasant, is actually the definition of vicissitudes. A change of circumstances or fortune, typically one that is unwelcome. And our consumption, family, of flesh have caused that disease and pestilence should come upon us in our ignorance. And these are some of the vicissitudes of life now that we have to deal with. And now it's up to us to make a conscious change. Now, the 11th of the 12th waymark of Jeshurun, it lets us know in 1 Achi chapter 3, verse number 48. And the 11th gift was the gift that you, by the power of your repentance and the intervention of your agency, may be able to overcome struggles of life. So now, the struggles of life that people are dealing with right now is trying to get off eating this flesh.
Right.
But with your power of agency, you will be able to do this and be victorious over temptation and the oppression of evil and the fiery darts of Semihaza and all his band. And thus you may not have more than you are able to bear. So remember, these animals represent different feelings. So we have chickens gathering unto the Lord. We have cows nourishing others. Deer, priesthood authority. We have fish in general, which is friendship, tending to others as a nursing mother. We have buffalo, which feels the need, or feels the resurrection of righteousness. And then we have the runner duck and the wood duck. The runner duck repenting together in community. The wood duck seeing the long-term view of where your covenant is taking you. And the sheep, that's a dividing between good and evil. The horse, obedience, willing to serve. The dog, dedication and devotion. And the cat, protection. Now, in the Gospel of Holy 12, Lection 91, verse 7 said again, one said unto him, Master, how will it thou when they grow up? And Yeshua said, after 7 years, or when they begin to know the evil from the good. Well, today, you've received a lot of information where you can now make a conscious decision because now you know the difference from the evil from the good, at least where it pertains to what you eat. And learn to choose the good. Let them come unto me. And later on in the verse it says, and let them be admonished to keep from flesh eating and strong drink, and from hunting the innocent creatures of God. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at 2 more laws, and we're going to wind it up with one scripture from the Essene Gospel of Peace.
Law 31. Let all who would be righteous consider all the spirits of life in the Urkadeshi to be members of their family. I'm going to repeat that. Let all who would be righteous consider all the spirits of life in the Urkadeshi to be members of their family. They're members of our family. And welcome to participate in the covenants of Shabuah and the pathway back to Eden. And may they live their lives in such a way that they can participate in the alliance of heaven by first learning how to live as family with their fellows. Law number 20. For the children of Anoka seed to find fulfillment with their gift of life in the temporal world, they must learn to express their holy dominion in all its forms, which are the dominion of in your family, personal dominion, in community, social dominion, dominion in creation, which is your spiritual dominion, dominion with Anoka seed, which is independent dominion. Dominion means the defined and practiced influence of your life on others, the defined and practiced influence of your life on others and on creation as seen by Anoka seed.
Let's go back to the Essene Gospel of Peace, back to book 1. And it says, therefore, and defile not with all kinds of abominations the temple of your bodies. Be content with 2 or 3 sorts of food. You see this? We're getting a guideline on how to eat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which you will find always upon the table of our earthly mother. Those are the things that grow out of the ground.
Right.
And desire not to devour all things which you see around you. For I tell you truly, if you mix together all sorts of food in your body, then the peace of your body will cease, and endless war will rage in you. And it will be blotted out, even as homes and kingdoms divide against themselves, work their own destruction. For your God is the God of peace, and does never help division. Arouse not, therefore, against you the wrath of God, lest he drive you from his table, and lest you be compelled to go to the table of Satan, where the fire of sins, disease, and death will corrupt your body. And when you eat, never eat to fullness. This is something else, because when we back in the Christian church, all these holidays, that what we do. We stuff ourselves.
Oh my goodness, yes.
But guess what? With a lot of these feast days, the same thing happens. People eat and eat, and they stuff themselves. It says, but when you eat, never eat unto fullness. Flee the temptations of Satan and listen to the voice of God's angels. For Satan and his power tempt you always to eat more and more, but live by the Spirit and resist the desires of the body. Live by the Spirit and resist the desires of the body. Live by the Spirit and use your agency to resist the desires of the body. And your fasting is always pleasing in the eyes of the angels of God. So give heed to how much you have eaten when your body is sated, which means satisfied, and always eat less by a third. And they gave us a little bit more instruction. It says, let your weight of your daily food or your daily bread be not less than a mina. So this is the minimum amount that you should eat daily. And a mina is calculated at 1 1/4 pound. But mark that you go not beyond 2 mina. And 2 mina, family, is 2.5 pounds. So that's the max amount of food. Right. It says, then will the angels of God serve you always, and you will never fall into the bondage of Satan and of his diseases. Trouble not the work of the angels in your body by eating often. For I tell you truly, he who eats more than twice in the clay does in him the work of Satan. That's why they told us you eat 3 times a day, and breakfast is the most important meal of the day. We know that's not true. Right. Because let's continue to listen. And the angels of God leave his body, and soon Satan will take possession of it. Eat only when the sun is highest in the heavens, and again when it is set. And you will never see disease, for such find favor in the eyes of the Lord. And if you will that the angels of God rejoice in your body, and that Satan shun you afar, then sit but once in the day at the table of God. And then your days will be long upon the earth, for this is pleasing in the eyes of the Lord. Eat always when the table of God is served before you, and eat always of that which you find upon the table of God. That's the things growing, right. Not the wooden table sitting in front of you. Right. For I tell you truly, God knows well what your body needs and when it needs it. Oh, well, family, to the Most High. We know this is a long lesson. Looks like we're pushing 2 hours. But it's a lot of good information. Yes, it is so well worth it. So well worth it. When we came into this information, it was just such a blessing. Such a blessing. And so we've kind of patterned our eating to only doing eating twice a day, which is right around 12 or 1 o'clock, and then in the evening. So family, we hope this was a blessing to you as it was to us, and that it will help you in your journey. We pray that the Father will strengthen you in this walk and will give you even more and understanding as you go through these videos and these scriptures. All right, family. We love you. We love you, family. We appreciate you. Yes. And we're praying for you. Yes. For all those that are going to try to make this journey. Absolutely. With stopping to eating the flesh. We also know about the cooked food thing, but like I said, that's another lesson for another day. Right. It's one step at a time, family. It's a process, yeah. It's one step at a time. And the best way that I say to do this is just like you seven yourself. Try to go from one Sabbath to the next Sabbath. Come on, boy. 7 days to 7 days. Then eventually you can make it to 7 weeks. And then 7 seasons, and then 7 years.